All right, welcome to the show this week. Welcome to the show. This week we've got a really cool 5-star review. It got posted actually this morning, so that was pretty cool. This comes from Brick. Love a nickname called Brick. So Brick, thanks for the 5-star review. It says the journey of a Christian Dad podcast is like a pair of well-loved running shoes for me. The message is always soulful, insightful, impactful, and powerful. Dan is a host that brings world class guests to his listeners and facilitates a conversation that causes deep self reflection. I promise you will accelerate along your journey to being a better dad, husband, and follower of God. My challenge to you is to listen to one episode and simply ask, am I and those around me better off for me having listened to this? And Brick guarantees, I guarantee the answer will be yes. That is awesome. Thank you, Brick, for that so much. And we've got Blake Brewer here with us today. So, Blake, it's your job to make this soulful, insightful, impactful, and powerful. FYI. No pressure, Blake.
Man, I'll do my best, but I am excited to be here today on the show. I started doing podcast interviews a little over a year ago, about a year ago, and you were the first one that ever interviewed me. And I've not now done about 30 or so, and man, this is really special. You always have a special place in my heart for so many reasons, and we can get into them. But man, just to be back and talk to you, and just to see the success you're having with your podcast, and there's so many more bricks out there in the world who appreciate what you're doing, and so anyway, glad to be here.
Yeah, so I didn't really give you an intro. So, welcome back to the show. For everybody who didn't listen to the previous show, this is Blake Brewer. So, Blake is phenomenal. He's got the Legacy Letter Challenge and a whole lot more that he does. But, dude, that Legacy Letter was so impactful for me and also for a whole bunch of guys that I know that I've kind of either got them to purchase the program and go through it. And with that, I've been able to talk with them as they're doing it, and then I also gifted it to a few people, through the business and things. And the people that I've gifted it to have nearly been in tears. A few of them, with their statement is, "I've been thinking about doing this for a really, really long time, and I've just never got around to it. And I was feeling like I really need to actually do it this time." And then I get a text from you or a phone call from you or an email from you right after I had the thought and thought, oh my gosh, there's an answered prayer happening right now. So, Blake, I'm so glad you've got your system together and your whole backstory, and you found kind of your passion to help a million dads write a legacy letter. And I'm just glad that you've been courageous and stepping into it, and you've impacted me, and you've impacted a bunch of guys that I know. So thank you.
Well, absolutely, and I can resonate with those dads who were sharing that with you because as I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and almost a 1-year-old, and if anyone knows the value of a legacy letter, it's me. With the letter my dad wrote me when I was 19 years old that I discovered a couple hours after he drowned in Hawaii, and that letter absolutely changed my life. So then when my kids are young, and I'm like, okay, I've got to write them a letter, and man, it was hard to write, sit down and write this letter to my children, and to just organize my thoughts. And okay, what am I going to write? How am I going to do this? And it just ended up kind of hanging over my head. And so, but like many dads, like I wanted to write the letter. Ever since I've told the story of my dad for the last 18 years, so many dads are like, man, yeah, I want to write that letter. I need to write that letter. We feel that, but then to actually get it done is a different thing. And so, man, I knew that God was calling me to help dads write and finish this letter, and really write like an A+ letter. And so, man, I would have never thought in a million years that this would be like my full-time job, like doing this. And because I have to pinch myself at times, like I'll get these reports from dads like, oh, I just gave the letter to my daughter or gave the letter to my son, and how proud they are. And I'm just like, man, how cool is that I got to help him write this letter that their children are going to cherish for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. So my wife, you're mentioning the impact. My wife goes, "You're doing what?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Okay, I got it." And then I got them finished, and she goes, "Hey, did you write me a letter?"
Where's my letter?
Yeah, yeah.
So did you write her one?
I did actually. Yeah, I did actually. So since I had put so much into writing my daughter's letters with her request, I hadn't written it, but with her request, it was really easy to put the framework together and transform it
I
into
was about to ask
something.
that. So the
Yes.
like the process and the program that we put together to help dads write letters to their children, you were able to use some of that to help write the letter to your wife as well.
Yes. And I was able to write it really, really quickly. Like I was able to do it within a couple hours
Boom.
because
So
the thoughts were there. It was crystallized. So it took me from thoughts of thinking what I would like, thinking about core values for my family, thinking about legacy type things to impact my great, great, great grandkids who I'll never meet. Like I want this to stretch out. And it just, for me, it really helped me just solidify what I believed. And I had to do the litmus test on it. Is this really important, or is this something that's kind of not important? What are the essential things that I need to pass down?
yeah, absolutely. So with this letter to your wife, would you say that it strengthened your marriage and all the things that come with a strengthened marriage, intimacy, and all of those things? Like, did you see an uptick in that?
I think in order to create that, it's not so much paying attention on your wife's side
Mm-hmm.
because you can't control that variable. It's only what you can control for yourself and
Mm-hmm.
how you think. And so, yes, I can absolutely say that happened because it changed the way that I thought about my wife in the thinking process and the deep reflection. And one of the things that came up that really, really mattered quite a bit was Proverbs 31:10, and it talks about a wife being more valuable than rubies.
Mm.
And I'd always thought about what's the word that it uses for wives? There's a few different ones, but wives of wisdom, wives of oh, I'm forgetting the first word, but anyway, like the perfect wife. The perfect wife is more valuable than rubies, and so I was always focused on the perfect wife, and yeah, that would be more valuable than rubies. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I act as if I have the perfect wife and value her more than rubies? I, you know, it's true. She is more valuable than like all the earthly possessions and thinking. And if I take that mindset into everyday life, when she's at her worst day, if I still value her more than rubies, my reaction is different and changed. So that actually, through the last year, that's something that I keyed in on, and I focus more on how I treat her and think about her than her being perfect or her being close to perfect. Well, and when you do that, you think about all the things she's not, and things like none of us are perfect, none of but I can control my thoughts about her, and so by complimenting her, affirming her, by you know putting wind in her sails, she's blossomed and bloomed. So yes, it's been amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the things that, for me and all of us who are trying to be good spiritual leaders in our home, is to love our wives better. And so I'm 11 years into marriage now, and I've just found myself over time having to check my motivation on why I'm doing certain things to serve my wife, and because at times I'll do something, and in my mind I'm like, hey, I ought to get a pat on the back for that. I just cleaned up the house, or I just did the dishes, and no one asked me, and my wife, I'm thinking, okay, where's that compliment or where's that affirmation coming, and she won't give it. And I'm over here, and it's not intentional, or she's not trying to not give it. She just, I'm over here expecting her to be like my mom, and like, oh, great job. And uh and so I found myself at times like being frustrated, and I was like, wait, why was I doing that? Because if I'm doing it just for her and for her to like say good job, Blake, I realized my motivation was off, and that really, I try to go into it now with this mindset. Okay, it doesn't matter how she responds to it. I have, as a Christian leader, as a Christian husband, man, my job is to serve my wife no matter what, and to love my wife. It's not dependent on how good she was, how good a wife that she was that day. It's just like no matter what, I love her and serve her, and so I don't need her to say good job, Blake. Now I like it when she does, but I don't need it. You know what I'm saying? But I have to wrestle with that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just like most men, you did the dishes. So you stand up, puff your chest out. I did it.
Yeah,
And
and
then
it's
and
it's
then you
like my
don't get the
wife's doing that
response that
stuff all
you're
the time, and I'm not. So that's just, hey, you did the dishes. Like that's not that big a deal.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So not having that expectation or uh, almost demand that
Yeah,
she affirms you or appreciates or thanks for something that's just everyday routine. Um, yeah. So that made a big difference for me was not having to have that response. Used to bother me quite a bit too. So funny you bring up the same similar story.
yeah,
I'll give you a quick example. The other day, I had a 3 day weekend uh, to myself, which was an amazing gift. A buddy of mine goes, "Hey, I want to go on this spiritual retreat." I'm like, "Well, that'll never happen for me." Well, within 2 weeks, it did happen for me. I got to just stay home, do a little working out with some buddies and stuff, but I really focused on organizing the house, get rid of a bunch of junk. And she came home and she initially didn't notice. And then she goes, "Hey, you cleaned the house?" And I did. She goes, "Huh, why'd you do that?" I said, "Well, I had some time on my hands and it was something that I wanted to do." "Are you saying I can't clean the house?" "Nope." Made no statement about it. I just knew it was something that you would appreciate. But more importantly, it was something that I wanted to do. And I just don't have the time to focus like I did. And I'm like, it was great. I got to listen to podcasts. I got to listen to an audiobook. And like, I had the most wonderful time doing what I did, how I did it. Like, I appreciate the gift of you guys going away for a vacation on a girls' trip with the daughters and me getting to have that just quiet time with myself and with God. And I'm like, it was absolutely amazing. And she goes, "Huh. So that's why you did this?" Oh, yeah, it was absolutely perfect. And that was kind of it. There wasn't like that. Well, I know, she didn't appreciate every little area of the home that I cleaned or what I did, but her reaction, I'm like, it didn't affect me either way. I didn't need that over and above amazing recognition that I would have needed 10 years ago.
yeah. One of the same things with our children, and because I think about my kids, and there's moments that my 3-year-old, I love my son Bo, but there's moments where he has a temper tantrum, and he's like, and he'll say, "Man, I hate you." I don't know if he says I hate you, I don't like you. He'll say I don't like you, and I'm
Oh, he hasn't got
honestly,
to "you're the worst dad in the world" yet?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, man, that kind of hurt a little bit, But I also know that at 3 years old, when his brain is still forming, it's not like he doesn't even really know what he's saying, and what he needs is for me as his dad to love him no matter what. It's one thing for me to say that, to say, hey, Bo, I'm gonna love you no matter what, and I communicate that to him. I let him know. But actually, like in those moments where he's maybe rejected me, or it feels like he's rejected me or disobeyed me, man, to really just wrap my arms around him and show him love. And that I know when I do that, he needs that, and I intentionally do that.
I do the same thing, man. I just grab him. "Daddy, leave me alone." "No, I just need to hug you right now. I think you need a hug." "No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. When are you going to let me go?" "When I'm done hugging you."
Yeah.
And after 10, 15 seconds, it all changes. And then it turns into my daughter hugging me back, is how it normally works out. So
Yeah.
that's a good point you brought up with your son. Remember the time, and it comes along in years, you'll get more of these inflection points, but that time where it really, really stung, where the words out of any of your kids' mouths just really stung you. And then you had the thoughts that came in that impacted you. Uh, I don't know if you remember the first time that happened.
I remember multiple times that it happened, and yeah, it stung, and I was like, man, what, where did this come from? What have I done to wrong you? But yeah, well,
Yeah. So that's the what did I do?
yeah,
Why me? how did this happen? So how do you get rid of, or first off, I'm guessing that those thoughts aren't thoughts that you're like, hey, those are great thoughts to keep repeating and grooving in my head.
Yeah. Well, I do know just from doing some research and reading that it is important for my kids to be able to express how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the parent or the dad who, when they are angry or, um, no matter how they feel, to shut that down and even say, hey, you shouldn't feel that way. Because at the end of the day, that is, they're feeling anger. They're feeling frustration, whatever it is. And so I do try to validate it and try to say, hey, I understand why that you're frustrated right now. And then I try to help them, know how to handle that frustration and anger.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to throw your toys across the room. It's not to hit your sister, or not. It's not to try to hit me or hit your mom. And I have to check myself because there's times where, man, they, uh, you know, like my son will hit my wife, out of his frustration. He's three, but
Mm-hmm.
he's
Three,
pretty
yeah.
strong for three. It's like, hey, you can't hit your mom. And man, I want to go give him a spanking. And man, I'm not against spanking, but I've really tried to say, wait a second. He just hit my mom, and now I'm responding by spanking him. Like what is the message I'm sending him? So there's definitely moments where I spank him, but I'm also trying to also calmly say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, Bo, this is not how you respond, because I need to model that, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so crazy. Like I find myself, like when he does something wrong, like like my temper goes up, and I get frustrated, and I'm like, no, well, I need to be calm.
So
And
how do you do that? That's really where my question actually is how do you how do you change that dynamic of where you're going to and change directions?
Uh, I I think for me the biggest thing is to think about it beforehand and how I'm going to respond, because when I don't think about it, I just naturally respond. I can find myself responding with anger. But really thinking through, okay, I know that my son is going to have some kind of meltdown in, at some point, like he's
Mm-hmm.
three, like it's going to happen. So I can mentally prepare myself for, okay, how am I going to respond? Okay, I'm going to calmly take him into the timeout room and talk to him. And I've already played it out in my mind of how I'm going to do this. It's the same thing when I played high school football. Our coach we would do these mental exercises before the game, and we would actually mentally go through the plays. And man, when we did that, we came out and we played better. And so it's I don't want to call it a trick, but it's what you do is you do these kind of mindset things, and you play it out beforehand, and then you follow through on how you played it out in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That visualization and running the play before you actually run the play, for me, helps so much. I picture that, and every once in a while, I'll picture something, and it's going in the wrong direction. Like, oh, that didn't work. Here I am. I'm like, well, I'm in control of my own thoughts, and I'm failing in a exercise in my own head. How do I fix that? Okay, let me pause, stop. Maybe it even requires calling other people or reading a book, or but some of these mental challenges we have in our own head, at least me, I need help with.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is like, I don't want to use the word experimenting, because I mean every child is different. So like the way that I respond to my son is different than the way that I respond to my daughter, because they're different personalities. And so
Yes.
there's been times where I've tried things with my son in discipline, and I'm like, man, that didn't really work. Okay, I'm going to try something different, or maybe I'm going to go try to do some research and reading, like what are other people doing. And then you know, the stat that I love and we should all love as dads is that we only have to get it right 50% of the time. Like all the research is showing, you just got to get it right 50% of the time, and you're going to raise some good kids. And so I just keep trying.
That's a great stat. That's really
Yeah.
encouraging.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think about my dad. My whole story is, my dad wrote this amazing letter to me at 19 years old that absolutely changed my life. And really the things that he wrote in this letter, it's not like there was anything new in there. It was the things that I knew that my dad already stood for. It's like, yeah, I read them like, yep, I'm not surprised my dad wrote that. It was just that he put it in writing, and so
Hmm.
it meant that much more. But my dad was not perfect. You know, I don't want to do it. I think it's healthy to do it, to actually go think through, like, you know, where our dads came up short. And I think, you know, one of the things I've noticed that as I've helped dads write their letter, and, you know, we talk about, you know, your dad, you know, what's your relationship with your dad? And no one wants to talk poorly about their dad. You know, they want to say things like, man, you know, my dad, he did the best that he could. You know, the way he was brought up, I mean, he did the best that he could. And so, um, a couple things that are going on there. You know, we feel like if we're, say, you know, if there was an area that our dad didn't do well in, you know, maybe he had a temper, and we say, you know, he just responded really poorly, and, you know, he could just really, you know, start saying whatever. And we feel like if we point that out, that we're somehow saying that our dad was a bad dad, and we don't want to say that our dad was a bad dad. And it's just, that's just not true. And so you can point out like an area, or you know, a part where our dad or our mom didn't do good, and we're not saying that they were overall a bad dad. So it's actually healthy to point out those things. It's healthy to know, like how we were brought up and things that happened to us, um, and especially as we think about parenting to our children.
I was blessed when I was young. My dad actually, not young, young, but 15, 25, in that range, where my dad actively told me where he made mistakes.
Wow, that's humble. That's hard to do. That's really cool. He did that.
It really was. So he's like, you have so many gifts, and he named off different things. And he says, if you follow my life and do it the way I did it, you're going to waste your life. And uh, he even went so far as to say, if you follow in my footsteps and do it the way I did it, I'll let you do it for a year. His footsteps was designed to make the most amount of income that he could make, but not use his brain. So he worked
Mm,
on a assembly line. So his motivation was to do like his father did: make money, provide for the family is
mm.
my obligation. So that's what he learned from his dad: is don't do it that way. And the way he said it, he goes, if you do it the way I did it, and you try to do it for longer than a year, I'll put a bullet in your head.
That's memorable.
I'm like, he wasn't serious, but at the same
Right.
time, he was serious, saying, don't get stuck in the career path that I got stuck in, and don't get stuck in thinking the way that I thought. Don't work so that you can get double time on Saturday. Don't work so you can get triple time on Sunday and holidays. Focus on a way to build your life so you can be with your family, take time off, enjoy your kids, enjoy your wife, vacation. um, don't focus so strongly on the bottom dollar that you sacrifice your family. So I know Big Aaron Walker, and Big A says, come home with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers. And that was the message my dad really, really drove into me.
Yeah, well, that's awesome that your dad said that to you, because obviously he had these thoughts. He's sitting here looking at his life, and he's, you know, I don't know if you want to use the word disappointed, but, you know, he wished for something different. Like, man, he wished he had been spent more time with you guys. And so it'd been easy for him to assume, and I see this with dads all the time, is you think, well, surely my kids see this, and surely they know what's going on. And we forget to actually communicate uh, what we think and communicate this advice. So your dad did you such a service by communicating his thoughts to you and said, "Hey, look, my life, you can do better than this." And you know what's most important is to not just bring home the money, but it's actually to spend time with your family. And he took the time to communicate that to you, and you listened. Obviously, you're repeating it back to me. You're living that advice out in your life.
Absolutely. And unconditional love. So I'm so blessed that I had a dad that truly gave me unconditional love, or as close to it as you can get here on earth. So that was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sounds like your dad gave that to you too.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that my dad loved me, and you know, as I've talked to so many different dads, you know, so many people didn't have a good dad, whether their dad just was not physically there or wasn't emotionally present. And just man, all the research and data shows that when you have a dad and a mom at home that love you, and you just have that the security that no matter when you leave the house and you go out into the world and you go to school and whatever bad things happen, but you just know that you can come home to just this family that loves you. Not a perfect family, but it just gives you this kind of a place to really grow up and develop. And I had that. And I didn't even, I thought everyone had that. And then you get older and you go to college and you start meeting other people and you're like, man, not everybody has that. So man, I am definitely appreciative of that. And honestly, I think, this is what my mission is all about, and helping dads write this letter to their children, because it's providing a way for a dad to communicate his feelings and help his children feel more love and feel more confident. And then as dads write this letter, the same way that we were talking about, especially as you wrote the letter to your wife, like it's such a self-reflective exercise that you end up becoming a better person, becoming a better dad. So many dads tell me like, okay, now that I wrote out this letter, I find myself like living out this letter that I wrote to my children. Like I am a better dad. One of the dads, so pretty soon after we did that last interview,
Yeah.
so that was like in October last year, and then I got connected to the vice president of the Arizona Cardinals, which is a total God story. I mean, I was just praying, God, I need you to move this week. Next day, I see a video of the Arizona Cardinals as like a mini documentary of Kyler Murray. Well, Kyler Murray, he's the quarterback.
Yeah.
He went to Allen. Well, I grew up in Allen, Texas, and I went to one of Kyler's high school football games. I take a video. This is like 2013. I take a video of Kyler throwing this game-winning touchdown pass. I upload it to YouTube, completely forget about it. And next thing I know, I'm seeing this Arizona Cardinals mini documentary on Kyler Murray, and I see my video. And I'm like, what is my video doing there? And so I emailed the Arizona Cardinals and say, hey, you guys used my video and you didn't ask for permission. And I was kind of messing with them. Well, they take that serious and they emailed me back. And next thing I know, I'm on the phone with the vice president of the Arizona Cardinals. And keep in mind, I just prayed the day before, God, would you do something this week? And so I knew as soon as this happened, I told my wife, I was like, okay, God's up to something here, because there's no way you just end up on the phone with the vice president of the Cardinals. And he ends up, he said, hey, we'll pay. I didn't know. He said, how much do you want for the video? I was like, man, I don't even know. He's like, how about $400? I'm like, oh, sure. And I said, but then I told him about what I do. I told him the mission that I'm on. And I said, Tim, I'd love for you to consider being one of the 1 million dads. I'll personally help you write your letter. And I was kind of putting myself out there. And, I didn't know what he was going to say. And he said, absolutely, man, let's do it. And so I started to help Tim. He's got a 12-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old daughter. And he was writing his letter to his 12-year-old daughter for her 13th birthday. He was going to give it to her. And he knew that his daughter, as she's entering her teenage years, entering middle school, the world is going to be pulling at her. She's going to be trying to figure out who she is. There's probably going to be some boy out there showing up to say, hey, I love you. All this, saying all the sweet things that a 13-year-old boy can say. And he wanted her to know, no, you've got a daddy that loves you. You don't need some 13-year-old boy. You don't need his love. And so, we wrote the letter. And one of the things that we talk about is affirming our children for not like the things that they do, but affirming them for their character and who they are. And so he really took that to heart. And so he talked to me and he said, hey, I wrote this in the letter, but then the next time my daughter brought home her report card, she had really good grades. She always has really good grades, but the teacher at the bottom of this report card wrote out some comments about how she was treating her classmates, and they were all really positive. Like, she's just a positive person. She loves people. Like, so he pulled her over, and so he was living out the letter that he wrote her, is what he told me. And he said, hey, I'm really proud of these grades, but I want you to know what I'm most proud of is what this teacher wrote about you at the bottom and how you're treating people. And she got a big smile on her face. And he just affirmed her in that. And I guarantee you, for the rest of her life, she's going to remember that. And what is she going to do? She's going to repeat the things that her dad affirmed. And so he knew to affirm her in that. And now what is she going to do for the rest of her life? She's going to treat people well because that's what her dad said is important.
Yeah,
Not just
absolutely.
good grades.
Yep, absolutely. So, in your learning through this and everything, how has your personal words that you speak or actions that you do with your kids and or with your wife changed?
Well, a couple things. I'm absolutely more intentional in trying to spend time with them. I'm more intentional with my words. I'm also try to zoom out and just think about, man, what do I want for my family? And what do I want 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? It's from my experience, like most dads haven't done that and haven't written down like, man, what I want for my family. What is my mission? Like, what is my vision for this family? And so that really just kind of drives everything I do. Where are we headed? And so, what do we do? What are we doing this week? Like I'm doing more than just reading this book to my daughter. I'm spending good time with her. I want my daughter to like books and to read. So I intentionally, like, we have a lot of fun time like reading the book because I want her to grow up and be a reader. I know she'll be a better person, you know, for reading books as she gets older. So just things like that.
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, you read my wife's book to your daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, the book came out, and I bought it and ordered it, and yeah, read it to her several times. She likes it.
I remembered you sending me that video, and I'm able to show that to my wife and my kids. And that was a really, really cool moment and able to kind of put wind in my wife's sails with that. And so thank you for not only ordering the book, but also for sending me that video. That was really, really cool. And just to see
Well,
my wife's look on her face was amazing.
yeah, well, I your wife had to do the work to get that book out there. I mean, everyone says, "Oh yeah, I'd like to write a book," but your wife actually did it, put the time to get it out there, and then you kind of have to put yourself out there, right? And you're like, what are good people going to buy it? Are people going to like, what are they going to think? And so I appreciate anyone like yourself with a podcast, anyone who's willing to create things that are going to serve people, because you're taking a risk in doing it. And so, man, I appreciate your wife and writing that book. She's
Yeah,
got some
yeah.
more coming, right?
She does. She does. She's got another one that's out now, and she's working on a third one now. She's learned artwork now, so she's trying to create her own art for the books, which is a new development. So I'm excited for that. She's doing pretty good, making good progress.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to buy that when that comes out.
Speaking of progress on things, I think you recently have been adding something to your mix of things to work on.
Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the book?
Well, I know you're working on a book.
Okay.
I know
Yep.
you're working on a book, but something a little easier to get started and to incorporate into your daily life. You're moving a little bit into physical fitness now.
Yeah, I didn't know where you were going with that because there's been some really cool things happening. But yeah, a couple months ago, you had Sean Tolson on as
Yes.
one of your guests,
So I'm
and
doing the fasting community with Sean,
yeah, you're doing the
and we've
fasting
got the
community.
fasting and the 30-day challenge that we're doing within the Journey of a Christian Dad podcast, which probably be over with by the time this podcast releases. But we did that back in September.
Well, Sean, he went to Allen High School, so that's how I knew him uh, growing up. I didn't know him super well, but we've become friends in the last year, and so I saw his program and everything that he did, and I signed up for his 12-week program. And part of it was a couple things. I realize the value in having like an expert and having a coach like in your life to help you in a certain area. I mean, I'm doing this with dads. I'm helping them write this letter, and that's one of the things I tell people is, look, even Tom Brady, who is the best quarterback ever, he still has a coach, and he has a quarterback coach that helps him be a better quarterback. So I was thinking about just my health and the goals that I have, for myself. But I knew that the healthier I am, my whole family benefits. I live a longer life. I have more energy. to spend with my children. And then also, I'm on this big mission to help a million dads, and I can't be getting really tired, which is what was happening in the afternoon. I was getting exhausted. I'm like, man, where's my energy? Like, what is going on here? And so I knew enough to know that I think it was probably health related and the food that I was eating. And so signed up for the program, put the money down, and Sean helped me come up with like the foods that I'm going to eat. We did some. I actually just messaged me this morning. I got my DNA test back, and so he's going
Nice.
to help me see which foods respond best to my body. But just uh, he's helped me with the workout program, starting to work out. But man, I immediately within I wasn't doing it to lose weight. But within 2 weeks, I lost like 10 pounds
Oh, wow.
and just started looking leaner and felt better. And man, I feel so much better than I did 2 months ago.
How's the workout part of it going?
That's probably the hardest for me um, because I don't have weights and we don't haven't belonged to a gym yet. So I got the bands and I'm doing that and man, it's honestly it's just not like I'm just sitting here at the computer and I'm like talking to people and to actually sit around and do it and stop for 30 minutes and doing it. But man, I'm making some progress, and I feel good when I am doing it. And I know you had your push-up challenge this week, and I told you I was going to do it, and I'm gonna have to do it today. 10 minutes. I told my wife about it. 10 minutes of
10 minutes.
right,
Yes.
and because how many did you do in 10 minutes?
485.
485.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's intimidating, man. I'm not gonna hit 485.
No, you're not. There was a whole lot of work that went in prior to that happening, and I shot for 480 was what my goal was to be able to do.
That's
And
pretty.
having no idea, I'd never done more than 2 minutes of push-ups in my life. And one of the things that helped was having another guy with me doing push-ups at the same time and struggling just as bad as I was, squeaking out those last set until you take a 5-second break. I encourage everybody else to take longer than a 5-second break. But yeah, we're just scrambling. So FYI, Blake, take longer than a 5-second break between what you can do.
Yeah, well, I'll do it. And I've got my, so I don't know if you've ever heard of an Aura ring. So
Yeah, I have.
it came with Sean's program. And so it measures my heart rate and the heart rate variability, which I'm learning about all that. And so it's pretty neat. I think it helps have something to measure. Like okay, I can visibly see that I'm getting better. My HRV is getting better. And then I
Yeah.
can, and then Sean asked me, how many hours of sleep are you getting a night? So I'm getting 8. And he said, all right, well, we'll see what you're really getting. And then I put the ring on. I've been wearing it for 2 months now, and I'm probably getting like 7 hours of sleep,
Okay. That's fine.
which is good.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it'll tell me on my app. It'll say, hey, you rested because it says more than just how many hours, like how much deep sleep, how
Deep
much REM
sleep and
sleep,
yeah.
all of that. So it'll tell me like, hey, you rested really well last night. You're good to go. So all of that.
Yeah.
Now, another test is I learned so I'm 38, but you can do these tests and you can learn your biological age. And so
Ooh.
my biological age is 1 year younger. I'm
Okay. Doing
37. And
all
so
right.
I was feeling pretty good about that, but I think I can get it down to like 34 or 35 if uh, I'm, I, I'm cut way back on alcohol. I'm hardly drinking any alcohol right now. And so we'll get it down.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We started out the 30-day challenge on the very first day. People were like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. The very first day was do as many squats as you can, just air squats. Do as many squats as you can in 10 minutes. And would you believe what some of the responses were? It was, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that." So if you were challenging me to do as many squats as I could in 10 minutes, and my response to you was, "I can't do that," what would you think or say?
Hey, you gotta stop saying I can't. Like that's a you got to get those words out of your vocabulary.
Yes.
That's one of the things I'm teaching my kids is man, we don't say I can't. And man, my daughter's really good at saying it, and I'm like, no, get that, stop saying that, because you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was responding to those guys, really, what is it about a squat that you don't think you can do. Well, I can't do 10 minutes. Well, that wasn't the question. The question was how many you can in 10 minutes. Like, can you do
Yeah.
one? Well, yeah, I can do one. Cool. Like, then you can do squats within 10 minutes. Well, I could do
Yeah.
two. Could you do one a minute? Yeah, I could do one a minute. Like, that's nothing. Could you do 10 a minute? Yeah, I think I could do 10 a minute. Okay, then that's 100. Like, why did you say you couldn't? All right, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then other people would say, oh, 30-day challenge. I can't do that. So what is it about I said, the shortest challenge is 4 to 6 seconds. Are you telling me you can't do a 4 to 6 second challenge? What do you mean? I'm like, you haven't even looked at it yet. And you said you can't do it because of time reasons. And then they started looking like, wow, a lot of these challenges are a minute to 2 minutes long total. I can do that. And so some of those same guys have done 15 days in a row of the challenge. So it's just funny that I can't language and reasons why we stop. So
Well, yeah, and I was telling my buddy yesterday. He was asking me how I was doing on my workouts, and I said, "Man, I'm gonna say this is a lie, but I'm saying I don't have. It feels like I don't have enough time." And I said, "I know that that's not true because there's people out there that are busier than me. They're getting in their workout every day. So it's not a matter of I don't have time to do it. It's just making it a priority and getting it into the schedule." Because here's the thing, you put into your schedule the things you do care about, and you make it happen. Um, so, like this Saturday, I will watch the Razorbacks play. I will figure out a way to make that happen. So,
yeah, it's funny the things that we will absolutely make happen and the things that we like tonight. I've got date night with my wife scheduled and planned. And of course, something shows up this morning. Like, oh, I've got reservations, everything's set. And of course, first thing in the morning, my wife's like, I just got a text that said whatever. And I'm like, all right, is this going to totally sidetrack date night or are we going to be able to make this one work? So, and we're going to make this one work. We were able to work through that other issue, but like, is it important or is it not important? If it's important, you make it, you just figure out a way to make it happen and stick it on the calendar and, that's it. So just like the Razorback commitment.
yeah, yep.
So what are some things that you've changed lately? Habits, some obstacles you've ran into that you've figured out a way to think through and overcome, or any of that type stuff?
Yeah, it's anytime, I'm trying to start this business, I'm a year into it, and you have these ups and downs. And there's some weeks where things are going awesome, and some weeks where it doesn't feel like things are going awesome. And so you kind of get down on yourself. And so I was experiencing that last week. I was like, man, what is like? I just can't get. I was stuck, and there were some things that were just hanging over my head. And then I just had number one, I had to reflect back on all the good things that God has done so far, and just like kind of make that list of like, man, no, this is all the things that are like things are going really well. And then this week, going into this week, I said, and I do this. I try to do it every week because the weeks I do this, man, I have a great week. I just go into this mindset of, man, it's about to be a great week, and I don't know what God's about to do, but it's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to see what He does. And man, when
Wait a
I
minute,
have that mindset,
can you repeat that again?
yeah, uh, I'll say it's about to be a great week. I don't know what God is about to do, but He's about to do something amazing this week, and I
I
don't know
have you
what it is.
repeat that just because, audience, did that just fire you up? Like, I got chills hearing you say that. So
Yeah.
in case you missed it, I want to make sure you
Oh,
heard
I
that.
get chills when I say that to myself, and I'll go in and tell my wife, and I'll say it out loud. And she's kind of looking at me, and I'm over here. She's got three kids. She's trying to take care of the three kids, and I'm like, well, sweetie, it's about to be a great week, and I don't know what God's gonna do, but He's about to do something amazing. And when I am in that frame of mind, like just good things start to happen, and God shows up. I think part of it is being in that mindset and just being ready to like receive that, and then uh, obviously I think it's just a faith thing too. Like God rewards faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. So when I go into the week with that faith, like things happen. And so that's last week, or sorry, yesterday. I get on the phone with a guy I didn't know that well, He's a financial advisor, and I've had a lot of financial advisors want to buy my program to give to their clients. They say, "Man, this is like right up like what we're trying to do as we're trying to help families." And he was extremely interested in the program and in the package I offer. And then he connected me to 9 people, 9 other financial advisors. And I'm like, man, how amazing is this? This guy, he's a well respected guy, just put me on with 9 different emails. And you know, the whole week I didn't have any leads or have, oh, and talking to 9 new people just like that.
Wow.
I was like, that's pretty cool, God.
This happens time and time again for you. So I love it. I love it. I was talking to Mark Victor Hansen. His podcast got released just a little while ago. And in that conversation, we're talking about his book, Ask. And he's like, I'm telling you, just ask God, ask other people, ask yourself better questions. He's like, in the morning, wake up and ask God for what you want. And when you go to
Oh,
bed, tell God what you want. And when you're sleeping, he's like, you'll come up with the answer and you'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He goes, and make sure you got a pen by the bedside so you can write it down.
and I have multiple stories of that. I mean, there was a time back in February, and things we're still getting things off the ground, and my wife's like, "Hey, like we're running out of money here," and I'm like, "Well, good things are happening. The revenue's not there yet in the business, but I'm helping the vice president of the Arizona Cardinals write his letter. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to this." And I got on my hands and knees before the Lord, and I said, "God, I need you to move. We need some revenue." And I just felt impressed upon me to pray for this certain amount. And I'm not the type of guy who like, you know, okay, I'm gonna pray this and I'm gonna pray in this number or whatever. But I just like I felt like, hey, I've got to pray for this, and I did not want to. I started like almost arguing with God, like, God, I'm not gonna pray for that number. And it was by like the next Friday, I was like, I'm not gonna pray for that number. God, I don't want to put you into a back you into a corner. Like, what if that doesn't come true? And then also too, I'll say this: I was almost kind of embarrassed to go to God, like a little boy going to your dad saying, "Dad, I know you're for me, but you know I need your help again." And it's like that's the most ridiculous feeling in the world. It's like God absolutely wants to help us. God absolutely wants to help me. He wants me to come to him and say, "Hey, God, I need your help." And it was just it's almost embarrassing to admit that I was, you know, I was afraid to ask for it. But I prayed to God for this number, and I didn't tell anyone about it. But I prayed for it, and then over the next couple of days, I start getting some appointments with some business owners, and I end up meeting with these business owners, and they said, "Oh my gosh, this sounds amazing! Like, how do we do? How do we want to buy this for all of our employees?" And so then that Friday comes, and the number that I promise you, I'm not going to say the number on here, but the number that I prayed was that I thought was impossible. God doubled that number, and and God just doubled it, and I was in tears. I telling my wife, I was like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe what God just did?" And man, it all went back to that prayer that I prayed 2 weeks before.
Yes, absolutely. I I've had times like that in my life where I was like things were stressing me out. Money was a little bit tight for various reasons. And one time I specifically remember the prayer was not for a specific dollar amount, but I said, God, I could use a little bump right now. I don't know what the amount is, but a little
Yeah,
bump. Whatever you can do, God. I feel terrible asking, but I haven't been able to do this on my own. And if you'd help me out a little bit here, I'd really appreciate it. Just a little bump, I just need a little keep me going, keep me motivated, and I hear it back. I'm like, I got you. Like, what does that mean? Sure enough, sure enough, something happened, and it was kind of in the ballpark of the dollar amount that I was thinking. And I don't pray for money all the time, but occasionally when something like your wife says, Blake, fix this.
yeah, yeah,
Like, we look for ways to take care of our wife and her family. And so in that case, like, you were prompted to take some action. And how
yeah.
cool was it that you humbled yourself and said, hey, God, I could use some help here. Please help me out.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned
Man,
going to your knees. So that was even part of the challenge too. I had the guys pray the Lord's Prayer on their knees. And the whole reason was is so we humble ourselves and remind ourselves that, with God we can do all things. Without him, we're going the wrong direction.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so have you got any last thoughts you'd like to share with the guys? And then I always like to, as you know, end with a challenge as well. So you're one of the challenge guys that I know. So let you close it out with some parting thoughts or whatever you got, and then throw out a challenge too.
Yeah, I one of the things that I think has just helped me so much is just know who I am and know my identity as a great dad and a great husband, and remind myself. I think I've shared with you before. I have a deal on my phone that at 5 o'clock every day it says, "What would the best father do? What would the best husband do?" Because, and when I read that, I know, hey, yeah, I am the best father to my family. I am the best husband. And so it's not a situation of, okay, I don't have to say, okay, yeah, go spend time with my kids. That's not what it says. It says, like, who are you? Because if I remind myself, who I am, I am the best father to my children and to my family. Okay, so what do I go do now? Because you act in your identity. Like, a
Yes.
football player, what does he do? He goes and plays football. I love that from Atomic Habits. He talks about someone
Yes.
who doesn't smoke cigarettes. His identity is someone who doesn't smoke cigarettes. So he doesn't even think about going to buy cigarette. Like, I don't smoke cigarettes, so I don't even have to think, okay, yeah, I'm not going to go buy cigarettes today, because that's not who I am. Um, and so, man, I really try to own this identity of, no, I am the best father to my family, to my children, and best husband. And
We've
so I
got a
think
guy,
that,
he loves Atomic Habits, absolutely loves it. His nickname's Slow Pitch. And we go out running and doing various different things. And we've been running now with this guy for a while, like a long while. And he's like, "Man, I am just not a runner." Well, we'd done like maybe a 3 mile run at maybe an 8 minute or so mile clip. And he goes, finishes up, he's tired. He's like, "Man, I'm just not a runner." I go, "I got to ask you a question. You've been doing this now with us for 6 months on Fridays, every Friday. Like, what do runners do?" "Well, they run and they train." I said, "What have you been doing for 6 months?" He goes, "Well, running with you guys." I'm like, "And we're kind of runners. Like, when can you give up this mantle of not being a runner and just accept the fact that you're now a runner because you run every Friday?" He goes, "No, no, but I guess I am. I guess I am."
yeah,
And he
yeah,
stepped into it. And so he's like, "Holy cow, I cannot believe that I'm finally able to acknowledge that."
yeah,
And, all those different things, like you just said, like acknowledging what we are so that we can then live
yeah,
that out.
yeah, live it out. And I think especially in our culture, we end up putting our work or our occupation. I'm an insurance guy, and so if that's who you are above being a father or being a husband, then you'll act in that way first. Well, that's not serving your family. And so, who are you first, man? You're a good husband, you're a good father, and then somewhere on the
Yeah.
list below that is, oh, you sell insurance. Uh, so
Yeah.
yeah, you got to get the
Yeah.
order right.
Well, you almost got the order right. And I think you know the right order.
Yeah,
First off, I'm a child of God.
exactly.
Yep. And I'm not correcting you. I know you've got the right order in your family. But with that, it was a little bit challenging when we right sized the way we ran the family. And my wife had to realize she was second. I was very afraid of that whole hierarchy change, but it worked out really well. And the whole family orders got so much better once we placed God truly first. So the businesses down the way, wife, kids, friends, but God first.
Yeah, and once you get that order right, then you can help your children know who they are, and that's one of the biggest roles of a dad is to help their children know who they are. Not don't let their friends tell them who they are. Don't let social media or the world tell them who they are, but you as their dad, let them know who they are. And really, that's what my dad did with his letter. I mean, my dad wrote some great things in that letter, but really, the most important thing my dad did was to help me know who I was as a child of God. And so, as I faced different situations in my life, the biggest one was overcoming my dad's death. Well, how does a child of God, how do they get through that? Because that's who I was. That's who my dad told me I was. Well, you trust God, you persevere, you have hope. You know that it's going to get better. I know that I'm going to see my dad one day. I know that I can use this experience to serve other people. Like all that comes with this identity of who I was and who my dad said I was.
Yeah. So feel free and go back to listen to the first episode Blake was on. I apologize for my terrible microphone that day. There was a computer glitch, just nuts, and I'm frustrated about it to this day, but I've never had that mistake happen since. So learning experience, whatever.
I'm glad you could learn on me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But great story. Blake's side of the audio is fantastic. Um, so like yeah, your dad's story is just phenomenal. And legacyletterchallenge.com.
Yep.
Yep, legacyletterchallenge.com. So guys, go there, check out the legacy letter. It really is an awesome challenge to do. And a lot of the guys I know said, I've always wanted to write this letter, but I've never been able to one get started. I've got the blank piece of paper sitting somewhere. Every time I go to it, I never get one word on it. But secondly, if I would get started, I would know I would never finish it because
Yep.
I just don't know what to do. And what they need is a structure, a framework, an advisor to help them through. And Blake and his group do that for you. So it's a wonderful system, and I appreciate it again going through it and doing it for myself.
I've never had a dad to this day regret writing their legacy letter because you
Right?
won't.
No, you won't. Yeah, you just can't. Not at all. And you'll run into things that you regret, but it won't be
Yep.
starting right in the legacy letter. That's for
Yep.
sure. So, what kind of challenge have you got for us this week?
Man, I think going back to the identity and really writing down who you are and getting that order right. And there's no shame like in me having that reminder on my phone and that little alarm that goes off every day at 5 o'clock that reminds me who I am and really just owning that. That's my challenge.
That would be a great one. That would be a great one. Send yourself a text message or set yourself an alarm with a question that reminds you at certain times of the day who you are, and that sets you up for the next transition. So I like the 5 o'clock signals you're off,
Yep.
no more work, time to go pour into your family.
Yep.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I appreciate you in life and everything that you've done for me for years, or year, I should say, since we met each other a year ago. But it feels like you've done so much more for me and with me. So I truly
Well, same to
appreciate.
you, man. I mean, you're the first for many things for me. First on the podcast, you bought one of the first one to buy my program to give as a gift to people and really open up that door. You've been a great friend. You've introduced me to some great people. And so I appreciate your friendship. Glad we got connected. And I'm look forward to getting up to St. Louis and hanging out with you.
Oh, I can't wait! I can't wait. And it's not only who you are, but it's also who you keep becoming that makes you so easy to introduce to so many people. So you just who you are so like you're just truly a blessing for the people that get to spend time with you. So you're one of my core guys. So I appreciate you greatly.
Appreciate you, Dan.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And men, do the challenge this week. Do the challenge this week. And as always, God bless you guys. And please share with your friends the podcast and throw some podcast reviews out there for me on Audible or Apple Podcast. And this week, that's the end. Thank you guys so much, and catch you next week. Bye bye.